Hello, people. Yes, you guys can hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right. Welcome back for episode 3, part 2. Am I right? We're on the third episode. Right. Yeah, we're on the third episode. Yeah. And we only have like 10 in total, I think, for this season finale of your life at CSA, right? The season finale. Right. Okay. Hold on. Why is the numbers dwindle so early? Is it a projection of what is to come, or everybody don't come out of the last class yet that they in? Or maybe you guys here don't know. Guys?
Not sure, sir.
Not sure. All right. Well. All right. Well, it's going to be our class activity. So, speaking of class activity, we do need to enable the mirror board. 1 second. Let me do that real quick. All right. All right, here we go. Let me see if I can find some space. And all right, y'all should have access now. Okay, so we were just wrapping up our conversation on infographics, right? You guys saw we spoke about the shape of the graphics, right? All right. So what is an infographic and what is not, right? So, who can tell me why is the image on the left side not an infographic? Or is it?
Is it because they have too much detail in it, sir?
Well, not really. Both of these tables have the same information.
Sir, it lacks creativity.
It's like really.
It lacks creativity, but just before we went on the break, one could argue that those boxes are very creative, right? Nicely designed boxes. So we learned that creativity can be a bit of a gray area, right? Somebody could look on this and say there is beauty in the simplicity of this chart with these numbers. Though I would suspect that would be a majority of you, right? Anybody here thinks the image on the left is creative? Nobody? I mean, at least it has a color, blue. Well, the truth is that this would be an infographic, but at the bottom of the scale of infographic. So you're absolutely right. It is not an infographic because it is lacking some kind of creativity, right?
Yeah, I was gonna ask, if you said this is an infographic, what's the difference between infographic, quote unquote, and a bar graph?
Right. Well, let's not get the two confused. I mean, the bar graph is an element of the infographic. It's just represented in a creative way. Because on the left and the right hand side, it's kind of bar graphs if you think about it. If you look behind the curtain, it's a little bit of a bar graph. So I'm glad that you guys pointed it out that the image on the left is lacking creativity. There is one other thing that is kind of lacking, which I would even put more important than creativity. We said it right before the break. I wonder who can remind me. Let me give you a hint. Who can remind me what it is lacking? All right, that was your hint. That slide was your hint. Omar, you don't remember Omar? The image on the left. Fine, it's not creative, all right? But what is more important that is, I would almost say, kind of missing? Well, not missing, but it is a special feature of an infographic. Omar don't remember. What about Barneswell?
The colors aren't there aren't different colors that differentiate each.
You're getting warm, but I can only give you half mark for that answer. It's not about the colors. Anybody else?
Sir, is it the fact that the overall infographic isn't necessarily cohesive? Isn't it's not together? It's not in one gift card or whatever it is that you put it. Like you have to read specific elements of it to get each card.
Yes, but you don't hit the nail on the head yet. It's kind of dancing around the point. What was one of the features that makes a good infographic? Who remembers? The information is what?
Layered.
Aha! Layered. So meaning that on the left-hand side, it has information, but it's kind of separate. The bars are there, the numbers are there. On the right side, the bar is the building. So the information that is communicating that this is the Burj is also overlaying on the information that it is tall. It is taller. It is the highest bar. You get me? So that is how you have a good infographic, when you have layers of information that is delivered to the viewer in a shopping cart, in one container, rather than just reading it separately. All right? It's not necessarily a requirement, but you could almost say that's what makes a good infographic. You understand? Right. So what makes a good infographic? So yes, it needs to be layered, but in addition to that, here are some other features. They usually need to tell a story. It needs to be about something. When I say tell a story, not necessarily, like a movie story, but the reason why 1 and 2 are there, where it tells a story and takes your eyes on a predefined journey, the reason that's there is because usually an infographic has many charts put together. So far we've been looking at them as a individual. So for example, this is just a bar chart of the buildings, and that's fine. This is just another population chart. But this example of a resume, this is actually a culmination of many different charts, right? And we'll come back to it. So because I'm going to be asking you what type of infographics are represented here, but you have at least 3 or 4 different types of infographic that's put together to give you this resume that you're seeing here, right? And This is why it says it must tell a story. It must tell a story because all of these are kind of related. It's telling you the story of this person's work experience. And then when it says takes you on a journey, it means that it is laid out in a way that you can follow. So up here, you have the softwares that this person can use. At the bottom, you in this little corner here, you have the hobbies that the person like. And on the right-hand side, you have contact information. So it is organized. You know, you can journey to the different parts of this resume on a predefined path, right? The third one, it provides a new angle. What does that mean? Anybody can give me an idea? Joel, based on what we've been talking on, what do we mean as, you know, a good feature of an infographic is that it provides a new angle? What do we mean by that? Joel here? Not bedtime yet. Oh. Okay, what about Brandon? Is Brandon here?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, what do I mean when I say provides a new angle as a feature of an infographic?
Is it the fact that an infographic is supposed to give basically it says earlier that it's supposed to allow you to correspond cognitively, like it gives you a new perspective on whatever information is being given. So it gives you a yeah.
Right. So for example, you know, a bar chart representing the height of this building, but what if we use the building itself? So this kind of ties into creativity, right? So we're there discussing what is being creative. Creativity, a part of what makes a creativity is, you know, you've seen something from a new angle, right? A new perspective. Well structured, that speaks for itself, as we spoke about before, especially where you have multiple charts. You don't want to be all over the place. It sends one key message, right? So usually you would have infographics that's closer together that is trying to convey a message. That, I mean, you don't just put random charts together, because as a whole it must be conveying a particular message. Number 7, that it must be visually appealing, goes without say. I mean, you guys are doing 4 years of an art related course. Most things that you guys produce are visually appealing. Visually appealing means that you have took some of the rules of the elements of design. Anybody remember that? DDM? Elements of design, anybody? Principles of design? Who can name me a few? Who can name me a few?
Contrast.
Aha! All right, good. So hopefully now a light bulb go off for everybody and say, oh, is that Sir Talk? Yeah, man, remember them things, man. All right? So contrast and repetition and all of these things, right? These things, when you follow those rules, something becomes visually appealing. And the more you do it, is the less you have to be thinking about it from the rule perspective, and the more you just do it naturally, right? It's accurate and well researched. That is important. I mean, you don't want to be representing data that is incorrect, right? Make copy short and sweet. Anybody remember what? Maybe nobody not gonna remember. What do we refer to as copy? Just probably from DDM days. No, nobody remember what is copy. No, copy. All right. All right. Copy is. This is what they refer to. Let's say somebody is asking you to design a poster, right? Then they're supposed to give you what's called a copy. A copy is kind of like an architectural brief. right? Of course, it's not as detailed. It's simply the information that's supposed to be the bare minimum important information that's supposed to be on that design. So, for example, if you're hiring a graphic artist to do a poster for an invitation for a birthday, the copy that you give them must have basic information, the date of the birthday, the location, things like that. So it is the fundamental information about whatever you're producing. As I say, kind of like a brief. So it's basically saying that the fundamental information that you're trying to communicate must, I would say, you're trying to simplify. Short and sweet. You're not trying to make it more complex. Right? Especially when you're dealing with large numbers, you're trying to simplify it into a diagram. So maybe I could rewrite that one and say simplify. And the last one is the practical value. I mean, whatever you're doing must have some kind of value. So for example, if you're doing an infographic about the world and the availability of clean water for a certain percentage, you wouldn't use an airplane. Like that graphic has no value in that infographic that I was showing you earlier. The proper symbol would be like a globe, right? So it must the graphics must be practically valuable. All right. So the types of infographics that we have. Firstly, the most common one is charts. And this is the closest thing that you'll have to an infographic. Charts equal bar charts, location charts, pie charts. These are things that we already know from spreadsheet days. And of course, you can do things like change the color and give it icons and all of that stuff, right? But charts and mixed charts, all of the charts is like the ABCs of an infographic. But an infographic doesn't have to be charts, naturally, right? You also have informational infographics. So informational infographics is usually when we use this a lot in architecture. Maybe you have icons that you use to represent a particular topic, and then you have some amount of information beside it, right? So this is what informational is. It's kind of not limited to numbers, because charts are really driven by numbers and ratios and things like that. But informational infographic is really driven by text, and information, but it's mixed with graphics as well. All right. This is also informational as well. So for example, you have icons here and some amount of information. This one, you have these symbols here. So this is it would take 4,000 plus years to read the email we process in one day. So that is that information that it is giving you, but it's also giving you this diagram so that you get a picture of things that are a lot, right? To kind of emphasize the 4,000 plus years, right? So you see this, it is an infographic because it's giving you information. It could have used charts to represent these numbers, but instead it did it in an information way. It gives you some text and some icons. Then of course there is graphical timeline. So we use this perhaps a lot, especially when you're doing your study tour. Most persons try to do a timeline, but the timeline you try to do it in an information graphics kind of way. So instead of putting the names of these buildings, maybe you put pictures of the building, and then you use graphics and you combine that with numbers and bar charts. Did any one of you, let's see, would be anybody use this before? An infographic timeline?
Yes, sir.
Right. And of course, the main difference that makes it an infographic is because it has the creativity aspect to it. It's not just a bar chart or a line. It has the creative element to it. And the creative element in this case is that it has the buildings. If you want to get even more creative, you could have the buildings do something special, things like that. Process. This one is super popular. Right? Remember, we talked about how infographics can be used to show a process. And I'm pretty sure that if practically probably all of you have done this type of infographic already, right? Where you kind of show kind of morph of how you got to a certain stage from a certain stage, right? So this one is also a popular one. It is an infographic when you have the information that goes with it. So it must have the information. It must be creative. The creative aspect of this is that it's like a massing, right? It's like you have creatively simplified the diagram here in a way that you can follow it as some graphical steps, right? So creativity don't also mean that you're adding, adding. Creativity could also mean that you are simplifying, all right? Comparison. This is another popular one we use in architecture as well, especially when you want to show how two ideas relate to each other. Maybe you have different arrangements for something. I mean, if you think about it, this row that you're seeing here only makes sense because you can compare them with each other. And by comparing them, that is how you extract the information. Right? You guys notice that? Just by comparing, it's like you can say, oh, when I compare this to this, I get information out of that comparison. It's like you're saying, when you compare the height of this bar chart to the height of this other bar chart, it's the same kind of thing you're doing. You're just comparing differently. This is more graphically comparing. All right. Interestingly, the creative aspect of this is also simplification. Like, think about how the colors were used. So you have a green here so that you can use that as an element that you can compare across, right? The green here represents like maybe open area, things like that. And the green area is also here. So the creativity aspect of this infographic is how you simplify and lay it out in a way that you can compare. So that's like a whole different light to look on creativity. Location infographics. Anybody can tell me what kind of anybody ever see any maps like this before?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Exactly. And normally you use this to show complex routes, but you kind of simplify them. So you notice we keep using that word simplifying, but it's also creative. Anybody can tell me why this is creative?
Layering.
Yes, it is layering.
Different
We're
colors
actually-
and different rows.
Right, the colors as well. And this type of map kind of infographics has some very special things happening for it, and we'll really break this down maybe like in the next class to look at some creative ways of simplification. The creativity of this is how it is simplified. For example, in real life, this route here and this route here is not 100% parallel. But just for simplification purposes, that they're generally heading in the same direction, the shapes are creatively organized so that you can summarize that these two routes are generally heading in the same direction. All right? It's kind of the same kind of brain cells that you use to create architectural infographics, and we're going to look on that topic next.
Sir, would this be considered schematic?
schematic as what? As a type of infographic?
That's correct. In terms of its simplicity, representing a complex idea.
I wouldn't describe it as schematic, especially in the context of architecture, because in architecture, schematic and schematic design has its own meaning. We in a way, we're starting from what infographics is as it relates to just graphics. We're not mixing it with architecture just yet. So I wouldn't define this as schematic. I would more define it as simplified. You know, even though they're kind of cousins of each other, but I wouldn't describe it as schematic. But I understand why you said that. But when we start looking into architectural infographic, we will see how that word plays into infographics. All right, it's coming up. Location infographics. This one is very familiar. Anybody can tell me what we call this in architecture?
Bubble diagram.
Exactly, a bubble diagram. Believe it or not, architecture is not the owner of bubble diagrams. We find it very valuable, but bubble diagrams exist outside the realm of architecture. It's one of those things that we can use in architecture, and it helps us out a lot, right? So how things relate to each other, right? And if you think about a bubble diagram, like the size of the bubble, where it's located, how the bubbles are connected, when you start to think about it, you start to say, oh, but I was doing infographics all along. You understand? So I'm just trying to make you guys realize, because when you realize that you are doing an infographic, you start to check some boxes in your head. You start to say, am I representing the information correctly? Is it cohesive? Is it all of the things that we just discussed a while ago? All right, so it can be photographic as well, meaning that it doesn't have to be two-dimensional graphics. It can be three-dimensional. It can be with photos as well, right? So this is another style or technique. It can be hierarchical. So for example, remember I was saying that not all infographics has to be a chart. So I don't know if you know about this Maslow hierarchy of needs. Anybody ever heard about this?
Yes,
I mean, if
sir.
you do psychology, right? If you do psychology, you would hear about it a lot, but it's a pretty popular concept. You know, basically saying that, you know, if we have the aspect below each level sorted out, then we can rise to I would say, a higher level of self-actualization, right? So for example, if our physiological needs are met, then we can start to think about safety. And if our safety needs are met, we can start to think about belonging and self-esteem and so forth and so forth. But it's hard to think about self-esteem if you don't know where the next dinner is coming from. You get me? Or if you're living in an area that is unsafe, highly. So, you know, this is information, but it is represented in this case in this pyramid, you know? And, you know, you have some other supporting graphics. You see this person is climbing there, which kind of signifies that, you know, it's like a journey to get there, you know, and for most people, you know, and so essentially it is a informational infographics. Even though it has a shape here, it's not a bar or graph, but at the same time, it's kind of telling you that up here seems to be smaller than here, which is signifying that, you know, not a lot of people make it to this level, right? It's harder to reach. I guess you could say that. It's higher. There's more climbing, you know? So remember we were talking about how you can make an infographic carry these extra layers of information. So, you know, these are additional things that are communicated with this picture, but it is not said outright, you know? You have to strive to get to self-actualization and all that you're getting from the graphic. But you know, right. There you go. And we're going to come to this. And hopefully next class, we can start to make some comparisons of how we use infographics in architecture. Right? So I'm going to save that one for a little later. Anatomical. We use this a lot, especially when we're doing we're labeling, right? So things like exploded diagrams. Remember, we did some graphics of that last semester when we did advanced visualizations, right?
Yeah.
So that is also a type of infographic as well, right? Because it's communicating information, but it also needs to be creative and it needs to communicate information. Like, how do you say it? It's easier to do that in architecture because when you take the roof off of a building, the things you're seeing inside the building is information. You know, here is where the bed is and the couches and all that stuff. But the challenge with doing this type of infographic is you need to simplify it enough that the story is cohesive. Meaning, think about it this way. If you had a very detailed Revit model, you have furniture, you have hatching, you have your steel work, you have all that information in your Revit model, and you cut a section through and just show everything, it's going to look like almost confusing. But if you simplify it to where you can only see certain information, then it becomes a story. It becomes something a narrative that you're telling about this building, right? Anyway, we're going to dive more into that when we look at architectural infographics and you see what I mean. All right, so quick question goes out to the first person that can answer. What kind of infographic am I showing here on the left versus on the right? What's the one on the left called?
Statistics.
Informational.
Aha, it's informational. Aha. So remember, informational means that it's not like numbers or charts necessarily, right? Right. Why do I want to ask this? Why is this an infographic? But no, remember, the infographics needs to have information, sure. But the reason that this is considered infographic is because the text itself is in a way represented graphically. The 5.6 billion, it's written in a way that communicates this number, and then the information is around it. So I just want to point out to you that in a way the 5.6 is almost like a symbol. I almost want to say it's a symbol. We're kind of going into the gray area of infographics a little bit, you know?
Thanks to technology and the internet, we live in the information age. And there's a lot of information out there. Unfortunately, this rise of information has also created an easily distracted society.
Oh, sorry.
Of course, Nick isn't too different than the average consumer. Hungry for information, but too busy to take it all in. So it's sometimes hard to hold his attention.
No, I'm just picky. You have to earn my attention.
Easier said than done. In the year 2000, the average attention span was 12 seconds. Now, it's only 8 seconds, making it far more difficult for brands to connect with their audience using traditional forms of marketing.
Wait, check this out. Average attention span of a goldfish is 9 seconds.
Enough said. Today's consumer has changed, and it's time to adapt.
And that's where we come in. We make the overwhelming Simple. And the mundane? Exciting.
We filter through all that text, build a compelling narrative, and then package your message in a way that will resonate with your audience.
Simply put, data, design, and distribution.
We give consumers what they want, visual communication.
And with thousands of viral infographics to our name, we're the absolute best at what we do.
Through infographics, motion graphics, and interactive design, we've helped over 250 clients around the world reconnect with their audience.
So why make your brand compete with information overload when there's a better solution?
Killer Infographics. We give information a facelift.
So this information that we're learning here is not new, right? There are other areas, there are other fields out there that use infographics just as much. We, however, want to use it for architecture. So remember what the theme of advanced computing is, right? We go out there and we look what's been used in other industries and we grab it and use it for ourselves in architecture, right? So before we start to create our infographic, I want you to take a look at this interesting one here, right? It's called Dueling Data. You can check out their website. And what this has is a type of infographic that's called interactive infographics. So you can check out this link. Let me paste it in the chat. There we go. There we go. And what this is, it is information, but it is really where is the okay, I thought I could make it bigger. I guess that will have to do. Right. So we can show information. It's the same kind of infographic, but it is interactive. So for example, this one is an analysis of the Beatles. These are the 5 members of the band. And when you hover over their names, you can see that information is highlighted, right? Now, this shows different types of information. So for example, what were their biggest hits? If you're not hovering over the name, it shows for everybody. These were their biggest hits. What is the Billboard ranks, right? So you can see the different ones here. If you hover over these individual songs, it shows the year up here. That's pretty cool. And it also highlights the name of the song. But then notice as you scroll down, it tells this is who wrote the most songs. So right away, it tells you who wrote that song, and you can kind of see with where the orange connects to the name here, and then you can see a percentage on the face, right? And there's what are most of their songs about? So for example, if you highlight love, for example, you can see this is where you have overlapping information now, because when you highlight this, it also highlights that this person wrote a song about love, right? And you can also see when the year that song was published, because it is overlaid with the information above. So I hope you can kind of see what I'm highlighting here. So this type of infographic is kind of where we are today, where data that exists already, remember you have all of this data that exists already, can be summarized in these interactive ways. Like if you think about the amount of data that this graph is showing, it's so much, but because it shows it in this way and it's interactive. So nowadays you have infographics, that's what you call a living infographic. So it changes with the data, right? So you can check this out. There are a couple others on this site as well. It's kind of like a project that shows examples of ways to represent data, right? So if you go here, you will see this is another one with Game of Thrones. This is interactive as well. That shows you all the houses, and like if you're really into the lore of Game of Thrones, like this can communicate so much, you know, a bunch of stuff with Star Wars. Any Star Wars fans in the house? Anybody? No? Yes? Some people? Nobody? Okay. No Star Wars fans, right? Information about music artists and all that. So these are just some other interactive ones. And if you click on it, it will open and it should load, hopefully. Anyway, so I just wanted to give you that bit of information there, right? All right. So what about the resources for infographics? Now we're going into you making your own kind of chart. So I want to talk about how do we go about creating one, right? And I have this example to show you here. It's on the mirror board. And this is actually something that you will probably have to do for your design studio, right? And not design studio, your study tour. A lot of times when you go on study tours, you find this kind of information from the municipality or maybe the entity that has information about the workforce, the type of individuals living in a particular location, you know, how much commercial buildings, how much residential buildings, and all of this data. And especially when you're proposing a design, this information becomes the foundation of why you made certain decisions, you know? Maybe you chose to put a certain store on the front of the building because according to data, a certain most persons shop for a certain type of product. So that drove your decision, your design decision, right? So when you're communicating that to your client, or maybe it's your lecturers, right? I mean, do you want to put this text on your studio sheet? The total labor force for Ocho Rios was estimated to be 5,008 persons, right? This was done in March 2018. We noted that 35% of the employed population was self-employed, while 65 were formally employed. Those who considered to be self-employed are taxi drivers, barbers, hairdressers, restaurant owners, etc., etc. I mean, that's useful information to help you decide, maybe on certain decisions for your design, but how do you communicate that in your presentation? Right? Or are you going to just put the text on the sheet? Or are you going to just read it? The thing is, when you read it, it kind of goes in and out, right? Like what your parents say sometimes, the information that's going in one ear and comes out through the other. So imagine you're talking about some part of your design, but it is based off of this data. So what you want to do is convert this data to something visual. All right. And that is what I want to talk to you about. This is how we start to look on how infographics work. So how do you build an infographic? Well, firstly, you might need to use these programs. And the great thing is that I don't need to teach you how to use these programs because you know how to use it already. As a matter of fact, you don't even have to use these programs. You could use Word and PowerPoint or whatever program you're using. Here's the important part. First thing you need to do is put together your information, your data. If you are trying to communicate something about your design, or something about some research that has to do with your design, you have to put the information together first. What does that mean? Maybe you're using OneNote or some other note-taking process where you can put clips of your information together. So let's say that you're dealing with how you want to design the materials that you want to use on the facade of your building, right? And you want to demonstrate why you chose to use these materials, right? So you need to gather all that information that you have, preferably in one place. Now, the next thing is select the type of diagramming that you want to use, right? And I call this one the sequential approach. So if you are new to creating infographics, this is probably a recommended approach that you should take. So for example, this link here called DataViz project, and you can check it out on the Miro board. I'll show you what it is. This is a really awesome website that shows you pretty much almost every chart that exists, shows you examples of how they can be used and how to use them. So for example, if you want to describe something about circulation, so you put your information together. Maybe your information is, I want to show how I get from the private spaces to the public spaces. Fine. I want to represent this on a diagram. What kind of diagram do I choose? Bring up this website. This is a good place that you can start and look for a diagram that shows something of how you would lay that out. So for example, this one looks interesting. It's called a Sankey diagram. If you click on it, it gives you examples of how it's used. And it gives you a description. It's specific type of workflow diagram in which the width of the arrows is shown proportionally to the flow of quantity, right? So they are typically used to visualize energy or material or cost transfer between processes. They can also visualize energy accounts or material flow on a community level. So if you might say, that's interesting, but I don't quite understand, then there are these examples here that shows you how it can be used. So if I click on this example, see if I can zoom it up. It's not very big, but hopefully you can see it. I can open image in new tab. There we go. So for example, it's showing you how the flow of money is going. Everybody can see that? This amount goes to rent. This amount goes to utility. Can you guys see? Is it clear for you?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, I can see it.
Right. So these examples here, you can use to determine if this is the diagram that is appropriate, because you might see this definition and you might not be sure how I would use this diagram. The other interesting thing about this is that you can see a diagram that you know already, but used in a more creative way. So for example, this one, the tree map. Remember we saw the presentation that showed this? So tree maps display hierarchical tree structure data as a set of nested rectangles, right? So you might say, oh, this is pretty simple, but then you can see examples of how that information is used. So, and some of them are creative, like this one. What does this one show? This one looks like it shows maybe GDP, maybe? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. It depends on the examples that you have here. Could be that. Right? So these are some examples of how it's used, and some of them are creative. So for example, let's go back here. Let's go back to here. Even something like a bar chart. A bar chart is very like normal. But then look at these examples of how bar charts are used, right? So you might go on this site and find some interesting ways to get some interesting ideas of how you want the diagram to be formed. And even though you see all of these interesting things here, they are all of these. Oh, this one is interesting. Does more education mean healthier teeth? Right. Some of them are fun, some of them are weird, but at the end of the day, it is a bar chart. So this is really great, especially that there are so many charts, probably some that you've never heard of. Every time I come back to this site to get ideas, you know, like this one, 3D stream graph. This one looks pretty cool. How is it used? You know, you can see examples of how it's used down here, and you have a definition of it as well. So I would say this is a good starting point if you're new to infographics and you're just trying to represent ideas. This can show you some ways to do that. Illustration diagram. Yeah, this one is pretty cool. I mean, you know, this is so you might even from this you can get some amount of ideas. All right, so there we go. So select the type of diagrams or charts you want to use. All right. Then next, look for visual opportunities to represent the data. Right? I wonder if Brittany can tell me, what do I mean by this? We talked about it earlier. What do I mean by this? Visual opportunities. What do I mean by visual opportunities to represent the data?
Use images that relate to it.
Yes.
Or
I guess.
icons and so on.
Yes. You are correct. I don't know if I would have phrased it a different way, but technically you are correct. So, when we talk about that visual opportunities, I mean, for example, like this here. You know, we're using a bar chart here, but let's use pencils to represent the bar chart. You know, Brittany, why would we use pencils in this case?
Well, it looks more creative, I guess.
Exactly. You know, it leans closer towards what we're doing, right? So visual opportunities, that's what we call it, right? So
Also, sir, you hear me?
uh-huh.
It more relates to the content being presented. So the pencils, they realize that InDesign, Photoshop, Illustrator, I was representing
Right.
data for.
There you go. There you go. So even though so when you find the chart, ways to represent the data, and usually you want to represent this as a quick sketch or something to solidify the idea that you have, right? So tie these visual opportunities together with a theme, right? So maybe you say, I want to use pencils to show something, but I want to use birds to show something else. So what happens is that your ideas can be all over the place sometimes. Or you might say, I want to use a pie chart looking thing to represent this, but I want to use a bar chart to represent this, and I want to use a map to represent this. So sometimes you have these ideas, but then how do they work together? So for that, I recommend these places. Of course, there's always Google, but like you have a Visme is good. It gives, yes, they're still around, thank goodness. Right. Their site has changed a little bit. They have templates that you can where is it now? Infographics, right. Come on. There you go. Right. They have templates that you can get some really good themes from. And some of them are free. Most of them are not, like they're not an Illustrator file or a Photoshop file. But the main thing is the idea, not necessarily the actual template so you can edit this text or whatever, but just a theme. Like if you look at this one here, it has these colors with these egg-shaped things. They have pictures of people and then the things are behind them. Like usually a theme may not answer all your questions in one go, but they can help you to direct your thoughts, right? And then you have these here. So remember, we talk about this statistical, informational. So these are examples of informational infographics. Oops. There we go. Preview. Right, things like this. I mean, you know, the color of it. You have this bar at the top, you have this bar below. Right away, you can use these ideas to get somewhere, right? Not necessarily the actual file. It's not giving you the Illustrator file or the Photoshop file, but it's giving you the idea as well, right? So here's another one. And of course, there's Google, and then here's another one. You can check out these links on your own, all right? So you tie everything together in a theme and then search for resources for your design, right? So you have an idea to use a chart and you want to have an icon of a car or a symbol of airflow and all of these little icons. I'm not saying that you should now go ahead and draw everything manually. No, you have all of these sites that you can check, and all these are free. So for example, magic icons. Anybody ever heard of any of these? What about Known Project? Have anybody heard of Known Project? No fans of the Known Project? No? Oh man. What? Well, you'll be pleasantly surprised. Known Project has awesome icons, some very little creative icons like, I don't know, let me make up something like wind flow. Okay, fine. It didn't find wind flow. How about
So you just spelled flow wrong. You put two
I
L's.
spelled flow wrong. Sorry, right. Circulation. You know, and all of these, you can just download them, use the vector, maybe you only want half. Sometimes you want to represent something, you know, building or elevation or anything. Known Project, like icons galore, like it's just crazy with icons. Nowadays, Office has really improved their database as well. I don't know if all of us know this, but for example, what can I use? Let me use PowerPoint. Let me go to new, blank. Nowadays, PowerPoint has something like Known Project, but it's not as vast. Where do I find it again? You go to icons. So they have their own icon category now in PowerPoint, which is pretty cool. They have a bunch of icons and you can search for them, and they have, wow, they have cutout people now. Pretty cool. They didn't have this the last time. Thank you guys for teaching me this. Check that out. So much cutout people. They're not necessarily for architecture, but you can use them. And stickers and videos and illustrators. These are new titles. When last time I did this course, I don't think those were there, or maybe I just didn't notice. Anyway, so let's see. So you have that. You have free pick. Nobody ever heard of free pick? So no.
Yes, sir.
Oh man.
Yes.
Oh, some of you here. Okay, good. So these are where you can get not just icons, but things, free assets. All right, because you're not going to create everything from scratch. All right. Right. So you find some assets and then you produce your infographic, right? So whether you're a fan of Photoshop or Illustrator or so forth. Now, there are two ways. I would say this is the sequential kind of beginner approach. Like if you've never really thought of infographics before, and I would say okay, follow this step, step 1, step 2, step 3, and you should be fine. For those of you who are a bit more like you've done graphics before, you guys are in fourth year now, so some of you have done like advanced kind of graphics. There is another approach. So let me show you this example. So let's remember this example I brought up earlier, where this information came from the SDC, right? I don't know if you know the SDC, they do all sorts of statistics on communities. So especially when you're proposing, I don't know, like a new development, a new park, you would go to SDC to get data that they have done. They interview people, find out what kind of demographics in the area, that kind of stuff. If you wanted to tell that story or to communicate that in your design, let's say I wanted to communicate this phrase about this, saying that the total labor force for Ocho Rios is estimated to be 5,000 and so forth, right? So step one, I would find the type of chart. So when I went on this website, I saw this one and I said, hey, this is pretty cool. It's bar charts, but it's showing like a bar in different areas. So right away, I've gotten an idea from this website. Look for visual opportunities to represent the data. So I do a quick sketch and I say, all right, if I use the map of Jamaica and we're talking about Ocho Rios, then maybe I can do like some 3D bar charts up here. Now, this is a very crude sketch, right? Very basic, but you can get the idea. Like you can see how this influences this idea. Next, I need to find resources to use. So I would go to these websites. So for example, maybe I'll be lucky enough to find like a 3D stock footage of Jamaica for free on one of these websites, which you can, by the way, right? So right away, it's not like I have to model this in SketchUp and extrude it. Like there's resources out there I can use, right? Then also look at the theme. So for example, remember we talked about the theme before we go for the assets. This is how I would want it to look. I want it to have this grid thing with this gray shadow thing here, you know, and you know, if I like the way how this text looks here, and I have these charts here. So this is like my reference image. It's like a precedence image of some sort, but a reference image in the world of graphic design. So I want my thing to look like this. I want the colors to be the same and so forth. Then I need to grab my assets. I would go on free pick, look for a map of Jamaica, which I found one here. I found it as a vector diagram. Then if you remember from last year when you did advanced visualization techniques, I learned how I can extract the data from a vector diagram and I can put it in a different program and I can do all sorts of stuff with it in different programs. Anybody remember those tasks?
Yes, sir.
Right. So that was one of the purpose of teaching you how to do that, because you may not find exactly what you want. Like if my idea here is that I want to show a 3D map of Jamaica, I may not find a 3D map of Jamaica, but I might find a 2D vector map. And, you know, I can play with it and do different things with it. I can, you know, explore what software can do. So that's where this comes from. And now that's when you produce your infographic. You have all the pieces here. Now, for those of you who are a bit more advanced with graphics, so maybe you don't want to do, okay, step one, I find this, step two. You can try it this way, right? So this is another approach, but it is more of, this is for those of you who you can already see with your mind's eye what you want it to look like. And now you just need to find the pieces to build it. Versus the way I just showed you is you don't know what it wanted to look like. So you start with step one, you get this, then you do the type of chart, then you start with step two, get a theme, then you go with step three. This way, this other way now is for those of you who already have a picture of what you want it to be like, and you just need to find a solution, right? So it's not necessarily a step-by-step process, but it involves the same ingredients. So let's use the same example again. I want to represent this total labor force thing, right? Immediately an idea pops into my head. I say, oh, I want to have like the map of Jamaica up here, and I want to project it down to this bar chart, and then I want to have these circles that represent the different places, the different, what's it called, occupations. And I want to put it on the side with 65% because that's what it said here. It said that 65% made up of those occupations. So it's like I have quickly sketched out what my mind's eye told me. Like I wasn't trying to look for a bar chart first or trying to look for a theme first. I just had an idea first. And now that I have this idea, then I branch out and say, all right, what colors do I make this thing? What resources do I need? So you say, all right, then I need to go and get some pictures of Jamaica and some graphics. How am I going to choose the colors and what it should look like? Well, let me go to this website and look at some examples. And I say, oh, I love this one. They have the title up here and they have the thing down here. So I don't know if you guys can see the different approaches. Can you? Anybody have any questions to these two different approaches?
Yes, sir. I'm seeing it. It's you can see the approach, how it varies.
Right. And each of us brains work different. So like I would maybe do like this is the way my brain works, primarily because I don't know, I'm just an old person, so I have all these ideas floating around in my head. So some of you have the idea already, you grab it, and the way that you grab it is you sketch it out. You put it down somewhere in some format that is not your mind. Right? And then you find the pieces to build whatever idea you had. If that's the way you work. If that's not the way you work and you have a blank canvas and you have no idea where to start and what do I do, then you start with step one. Look at some examples of pre-made graphs and bar charts, and then you kind of build yourself up. All right. So these are the two approaches that I want you guys to think about, right? When creating this first assignment that I'm about to unveil now, right? Now, our class activity for today is going to be, wait, how did this get here? Right, it's going to be, I want you guys, for each of these categories, I want you to show me. And when I say show me, I mean like, let's use this example again. If I wanted to represent this, what graph would I use? If you're using this approach, the sequential step, what graph would I use? Then what visual opportunity would I do? And you can sketch this out. You can even sketch it with a mouse. I mean, I sketched this with a mouse. It's horrible, but you can see that this represents Jamaica and this is Otorius up here. I get the idea, right? And so forth and so forth. So you would represent each one of these steps for me. And how you represent it is totally up to you. Remember last week we spoke about digital note taking. Remember that? And we spoke about, especially this one, how we can store data. We looked at the fact that we can do sketches, we can take a YouTube video and paste it. We can do a recording, we can take a picture with the phone. There's all sorts of ways that we can represent data. So what I want you guys to do for each one of these in your OneNote notebook, you're going to show me what your idea is. So what is your idea for the type of chart? Now, for those of you that want to do it, I would say the more advanced way, where you already picture the idea in your head already, then I want you to do the same thing. I want you to show me the sketch of it. If you sketch it on your phone or on a paper, you take a picture of it, put it on the OneNote, right? You can, if you have a digital pen, you can do it. I don't need an elaborate sketch, just an idea, right? Then show me an example of what you want it to feel like, the layout to feel like, and show me where you think you can get the resources from. Right? You can, to do this, you can paste a link, you can take a screenshot, right? Or you can even paste the actual object, because OneNote will store an Illustrator file or a PDF file. Granted, it would make the page heavy, so not recommended, but all right. And then you're going to produce the infographic. Now, you don't have to put the produced infographic on the page. That is what you're going to submit to me for the assignment. But for the class activity, you're gonna basically first, you can just take a screenshot if you want, but you're basically going to just represent this. Right? Show me the theme that you're using, the sketch that you have, and where you're going to get the resources. All right? Do you understand, guys?
Yes, sir.
Thanks, sir.
Yes, sir.
I think so. Right? Now, how do you submit this to me? Simple. You just need to click the submit button here, just like what you did last week. And you're going to paste the link. I'm going to give you two. Oh, this is activity 2. Sorry. Where's activity 1? Let's go back here. We need to go to Chrome. There we go. And we need to go here. There we go. And we need to go. Let me try and find where this is. Where did you go? Right. Ah, I found him. Okay, good. Good. All right, good. So I just need to update the link. That was the problem. Okay. Right, there we go. So you go to the link here and you will see it here. So class activity 2, regular stuff, name, email. So you're going to paste a link to the notebook. You guys know how to do this already. You click the share button and you paste the link here. Then I want you to give the link to the notebook page. So let me show you. Here's an example. So, all right. So let's say that you go to your notebook. So this is my notebook that I started for this class, right? I'm going to create a new page and I'm going to call this maybe, what's it called? It's called, assignment 1, right? And let's say I want to do a step-by-step process, right? So we already know that the first step here was, here we go. You're going to collate your ideas. That's easy because I'm going to give you the assignment, which is where you get the info, who's where you're going to get the data from, right? So select the type of diagram to use, right? If I want, I can even copy this and stick that. Select the type of diagram to use, right? If I want to be kind, I can maybe just use some of the tools here, some of the digital tools, maybe just a box. Oops. That. There we go. Right. Then so let's look up. Here we go. And let's say that here, let me choose one of my favorite ones. Funnel chart. I love these. These are kind of interesting. I use these for, anybody remember the funnel chart that I made in DDM? No? Oh, wow. It was so long ago, right? All right, so let's say that I'm going to use a funnel chart for my idea here. I'm just going to stick that in OneNote there. And the next thing was to show my idea, right? So maybe just to kind of make my notes cohesive, I will just paste this over here. And maybe I will just use a drawing tool. And, maybe I can show, maybe I'm going to do like a 3D funnel. Oops. A 3D funnel for my chart. So I have something up there, and then I have another one below that, and then I have another one below that, and then one below that. Maybe I want to have this 3D effect, something like that. I don't know, but let's say this is my idea here. All right, good. So let's put an arrow there to kind of show that I'm going from here to here, right? So next I want to show my, where am I going to get some of these? No, next I want to show my theme, right? So I look on some of those websites that I brought up, and you can use your own websites. You don't have to use the ones that I use. And guess what? Even some of these here have examples of how they are used. Like check out this one. This 3D one is pretty cool, where it shows the open image tab. Right. So this is pretty cool, where it shows like a 3D funnel kind of thing, and it have the names there. This is interesting. So I like this. So I can just do a screenshot in OneNote, or I can just copy this here, and I'm gonna just stick this here. I'm just move it to where I want. Like this. Right. I can even use that there. You might find that OneNote feels a little stiff. It's not a drawing program. It's really for note taking, right? But then maybe I want to, I don't just want to stick a picture here. Maybe I want to remind myself of something. So remember we spoke about how we can do this, how we can record notes. It could be just, you don't want to bother type it out, so you say it, and then you save the recording there of what you want to say, or you can just use text, right? Or maybe you found a tutorial on YouTube that shows you how to get a 3D shape like this. So for example, let me just give you an example of that. So like, here you go. Create 3D funnel chart in what? What program? Illustrator? Let's say Illustrator, right? And check this out. These are some cool tutorials of how you can do a 3D funnel chart. So this looks pretty cool. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to just stick it here. Oops. I didn't copy it, right? It's not that one. Oh, not only do I have many tabs open, I have many Chromes open. Here we go, right? So I should be able to can drag it over. Yeah, there we go. So I will save this here. So maybe I plan to use this tutorial to help me out and put it down here. I have more space. All right, so there I go. And I'm gonna use that to create that, right? Oh, hold on, there's supposed to be another. Right. There we go. So there, right? And what was the last one? So this is the theme that I want it to look like. Next is where I get the resources, right? So, maybe if I was doing this, I don't think I need much resources to create this. So maybe this is a bad example, but if I needed a elevation of a car because I'm doing something with cars, or I wanted an icon of a barber because I was doing a barber. Hope you guys get the idea, right? Now, when I have this now, this is my idea for the infographic. So when you're submitting this to me, I will just click share. So I'll share my entire notebook. This is what you did last week, by the way. So you're supposed to know to do this already. And I'll just copy this link here. All right. And let me go to the mirror board. So, no, not the mirror board. Where did I put it? Was this one? Right. No, it's not this one. It was this one. Yeah. So, and I would stick my notebook link there. And then it's a link to notebook page where, because your notebook, you might have, I don't know, 15 different pages. So, imagine those of you who have a lot of pages. So I would just go copy link to page and paste it here. So that way, when you guys send me the link, I'll be able to open the notebook and I can be able to jump right to that page in case you have multiple pages. All right. All right. So we're going to start this process now. So now is where I want everybody to kind of decide what you're going to do. Oh, before we start, obviously I have to show you the assignment first, right? Oh, okay. So if you go to the website, let's just jump over to Advanced Computing 2. What you will notice is that, the assignment is coming soon, but the assignment is already here, right? So let us lift the curtain off that assignment. All right. Anybody want to volunteer a drum roll? Any drum rolls? Okay. Give me a while the editor loads. Okay, good. It's finished loading. All right. All right. Now you can give me the drum roll. Anyway. All right. So for our first assignment, let's do that. See. There we go. Great. So all you need to do is refresh and it should pop up now. All right. Here we go. Using the lessons and techniques learned from infographic lectures, create an infographic poster that will visually summarize the following extracts taken from the Jamaica Statistical Institute 2019 report on Montego Bay. Right? 2, not 3, not 1. So you can choose any 2 of these 2 to represent, right? So the first one, at the end of 2018, Montego Bay represented approximately 5% of Jamaica's population, accounting for roughly 71% of the parish residents. Imagine this was an introduction to your museum that you're putting in Montego Bay. Would you put this text on your studio sheet, or would you put an infographic that says it? So immediately when they look, they can see, oh, okay, this is the population of Montego Bay. So I want you to think about this. Well, any 2 that you choose. All right. Montego Bay's population has been steadily rising for the past few decades, with data from 1991 to 2018 indicating an increase in the average of approximately 1% per year, adding to its population over 35,000 new residents over the last 27 years. This was actually taken from the document. And funny enough, most of these that you're seeing here were actually taken from studio presentations that I've been at in the past, where I saw students read this out. Some of them even have the text on their page as some little fine text that, I mean, we would just never read. So I want to change that trend, right? So this is actually things that are used in architecture. So how would you represent this information? So pick any two of these diagrams. Let me show you the last one. Montego Bay's population seems to be fairly young, with more than 50% of the residents being below the age of 30. The working class, categorized as ages 25 to 60, accounts for approximately 47% of the residents, excluding those who work below the age of 25. So there are a couple of things that may be popping out to you guys. Firstly, we're talking about Montego Bay, location. Next, there are things that are, where they put it, insinuated from the text. So for example, Montego Bay's population seems to be fairly young. Like, how do you represent that as data? How do you represent fairly young? All right. Any ideas, Chantel? How do I represent fairly young as data, as visual data?
Could you repeat that, sir?
How do I represent the phrase fairly young in quotation as visual data? Fairly young.
Sir, to be honest, I'm not quite sure.
What do you mean? Okay, anybody else? How would I say
Trees.
So an icon.
Could
more
be
specific?
using like
So I was thinking like
teenagers.
clip art,
Yeah.
clip art cutouts of teenagers or young adults.
There you go. There you go. There are different things that says fairly young.
I
Right?
cannot show the age difference.
You can show numbers too.
Yeah,
It's
it is.
totally up to you. But you have to remember what the infographic is, right? It needs to communicate. And you see, it's not just one chart you're creating here, You have to make them work together. So those of you who get this process good will be able to achieve what you call layering, right? Or how do you explain this? Okay, for those of you who play some kind of fighting video games, name me a fighting video game that you can, where two people fight. Anybody?
Mortal
General
Kombat.
Mortal
Hollow.
Kombat.
All right,
Or
Mortal
Tekken.
Kombat, Tekken, right? The persons who can play, can't really play, they mash buttons and so forth. But the persons who can play well, they can do like combos or juggles or things like that, right? So when you see somebody do like a combo in one of these games, like they're able to layer different moves together to deliver them in, what's the word? Synchronicity. Right? And it looks kind of cool usually, right? So it's the same thing with graphics. Like you're trying to represent different data here, but if you can find a quote unquote combo, if you can layer the data in a creative way where you're not just listing, you're not just listing each item as individual things with a chart, but you're combining them in creative ways. And I don't want to give away, no spoilers, right? You guys need to figure it out yourself because I showed you an example of what layering is, right? It's the same thing for those of you who might play a fighting game. You learn how to do one move and you learn how to do another move, but then you say to yourself, I can put piece of this move together with piece of that move, and then that's how creativity is born, right? So it's the same thing with graphics. You try to figure out opportunities that you can layer information together, right? So anyway, where we will begin is with our class activity, right? So I want you guys to now go ahead and use your notebooks and find for those of you who is using this path, find the charts that you want to use or examples of the charts you want to use. You don't have to use this website, but this is a good place to start. Maybe you have your own trove of creative stuff that you have gathered over the years, fine. In terms of the notebook, though, I would say stick to OneNote unless you have a notebook application that can do all the things that we talked about in the first class. Then just talk to me and we can use that. But it must be able to do all the things that we said, to be able to share and store different types of data and blah, blah, blah. All the things that we talked about last class. So to be safe, you can just use OneNote to do these class activities that require you to do it, all right? As I say again, I don't work at Microsoft, but that happens to be the AutoCAD of note taking. So it's just an example of one, all right? I know some of you might not be OneNote fans, but I need it to be a note-taking app that has all of these features so that we can go back and forth. Because I might send something to you and it needs to be flexible to collaborate. All right, so I'm gonna hang around for
Sir,
a couple
for
minutes.
the class activity is the sentence the data we are using.
If it's the same, say that again.
Sentence data right below that.
No. You are using the handout, the official handout. So if you go on the class website, where is it? Right. If you go on the class website, scroll down where it says assignment 1. This is the data you're using.
Oh, okay.
Right.
I took that.
The one I
So,
gave you was just an example. The one on the mirror board, it was just an example.
Okay.
Right.
So if one of them are, like I said, we have to choose two. So
Yes, so you have to choose 2. So
and
what
then-
you're going to do is before the end of, well, it's kind of late. A class activity is supposed to happen during class, right? So before the end of class, what you would have done for me is these steps. You would put together your information, meaning you're going to select which 2 data you want to represent. You're going to select the type of diagram you want to use. And all of this that I'm saying, you're doing it in OneNote. You screenshot or whatever way you want to store it. You're going to look for visual opportunities. Remember, I showed you an example of this below. So visual opportunities. It could be a map of Jamaica, and then maybe there's a bar chart. I got this idea from this. So what is your idea? You're going to find that, paste it in the OneNote. Then you're going to find an idea for the theme of how you want to lay out the infographic. Find an example of one somewhere. Don't matter from which website, but you can use the links I gave you. And then where are you going to get your resources? All right, so show me some examples of some of the icons or some of the clip arts that you want to use, and you're going to drop it there. All right.
Yes. Sir.
Everybody understand what you're doing?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Sir,
sir.
I'm trying to find the information that you just presented, but we're basically working on
Right. So go to the class website.
eh,
It's in the welcome email. The link to it is, or you can just, if you know it out of your head, it's the same one that we've been using over the years. It's I'm pasting the group utech.csc at oops. Where is chat? Here we go. Yeah, same class link. You just go there, and of course, that is where we will get all our information for class, right? So you guys know the drill. Right? This is where you go to check your grades. When we decide on groups, that's where we're going to have the link there of the different group members. You know, and all the other assignments. Some of the things that we were talking about is here. So the presentation we did today, there's a link to it right here in case you want to look back on it. By the way, you guys know where to find the class recordings, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, great. So if there's something that you're trying to remember from class, let's look back on the recording. I will upload a bunch of them after this one encodes today. Right. And then what's going to happen is next week when we meet again, I'm going to look on some of your notes that you made. And you have 2 weeks to do this assignment. So by next week, you should be like almost done or done, hopefully. All right. So I will take a look at
What are we
some of
supposed to submit today?
what you are submitting in class is the class activity, which is class activity number 2. Your infographics concept. You're
Okay.
submitting a link to your OneNote notebook that you will document those things that I just showed you.
Okay.
That is what you're submitting today. That is what you're doing as a part of class now.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Right. And then the assignment, meaning the final design, the PDF or the JPEG that you design in whatever program and you're submitting it to me, that is in 2 weeks' time.
Understood, sir.
All right.
Sure, I'm
Okay,
about
guys.
to the source.
Repeat that.
No, I'm new to the class, so some of the things in terms of navigate, like how where you
Oh,
say
I see.
yeah, trying to figure it. Where do you upload? And I went on the class website and I saw a few things. But where do I upload?
Right. So when you go to the class website, scroll down to the assignment 1. Here is the submit this classwork. This is how you submit the work.
Okay.
Right. Right. So all the class handouts will be on this class website. All right. And
Okay,
then
so this is what I was looking for. I was asking it earlier.
Right. And any notes that relates to the assignment is usually in this little window below. You know, so little things about infographics. I found some videos, some cool videos you could look on. You know, some presentation about infographics. There's some interesting stuff there. You know, I remember for one class, somebody said to me after they did the assignment, they said, "But sir, you had some nice examples in the thing and I didn't see it." And I say, "Yeah, I tell you, they're all there." But sometimes some persons might not see the stuff on the site. So even the video that we watched last week, the video that we watched today, those are all there on the site as well in case you guys want to look back on it. You know? You know, the great thing about this course is that we were doing this long before COVID. Like, long before COVID, this website existed. So, so the information has been like refined over the years and stuff like that. So I think you'll find some good stuff there. All right. So don't forget to use up the class website, right? All right. Are there any more questions? I hope you guys were following. Did I leave anyone behind when talking about infographics? I guess silence means no, hopefully. All right.
Sir, where's the you said the video that we watched is where exactly?
That video of right, you guys should watch the full video. No, this one is the one we watched in the first class. This one is one that we didn't watch actually, so you can watch this one. Oh, maybe that one was new. Okay. All right. Hang on a sec. Submission. Infographics. Yeah, I think this is, yeah. All right, yes. So it should pop up here in a couple minutes. You should get it there. All right. This is a cool one about infographics as well. You can check that out along with some of these other stuff here. All right.
Sure, and could you put up the one you showed last week as well?
The one I showed last week is under course information.
Okay.
And remember, you can actually watch the class recording to watch it. Yeah, I just realized that. Of course, if you watch the recording of me watching it. But I did skip through a bit of the video today. So if you want to see the full video, watch it on the class website. All right. All right. Okay, guys. So I want you to use the rest of the time to finish the class activity, right? Which means that you are gathering that information. And then next week when we meet, I will look on a few of them and we'll talk about it a little bit. But we will move on to, we'll start to dive into architectural infographics now, which is a little different than straight up infographics. But that is where you will find really helpful. All right. All right. From what, oh, by the way, from what I hear, your study tour may be on the 12th of February, which if it is going to be on that date, it will be, so your assignment, you might end up with an assignment overlapping because of that, so we'll talk about that. But you might end up leaving on the 12th, so we'll arrange our classes to avoid to match with what's happening. All right, I figure by next week we'll know for sure what dates are your study tour dates. All right. Okay. All right, guys. So that is it for today. If there are no more questions, then just use the time, finish up the class activity. I will look out for those OneNote notebook links, and then we can talk about them for the next class. All right, guys, we didn't do too bad today. I think we took care of most of the things within 2 hours. As I said, normally we should be able to do this. Maybe for some classes it might go longer.
Sure.
Yeah.
Could you explain the one?
Explain the what?
OneNote notebook link.
Oh, you weren't here at the last class?
Sorry, this is actually my first class.
Oh, well, no worries. You know how to navigate the website? Do you know where to find the classes? The class recordings? Have you ever looked for them yet?
I'm familiarizing myself now with the website.
All right, hang on 1 second there. Let me see if those previous classes are already uploaded. Okay. All right. They haven't finished what's the word yet? Hold on, let me see why they haven't finished uploading. Okay, maybe it will finish. Okay, in the meantime, when you go to the class website, if you go back to the home, because this takes you directly to the AC2 website, right? So this is the home. Let me start from the beginning. For those of you who are new to the website, right? So this is the student submission portal. You will send your usually you submit your studio work at the end of the semester. And for computing, all of computing work is submitted via the student submission portal, right? If you go to student, and these are the different subject areas. So the master's course also uses this for critical theories, but pretty much it's just studio computing uses it. So if you head to computing, these are the 6 computing courses. Of course, we're doing advanced computing 2, and that is what takes us to the advanced computing 2 website, right? However, if I go back here, you'll notice that class recordings is at the top. So when you go to class recordings, you will see all the different computing courses, all 6 of them. So you would go to the advanced computing 2, and then you would go to 2023, 2024. And when you go there, you'll see them pop up in this list here. All right, I had set them uploading today, but I'm not seeing them, but I'm going to check on that slowly. But that is where you go to access the recordings, all right? So you can find the class, right, that we spoke about, OneNote and digital notebook and all that kind of stuff. You can check it out from there, all right? All right, guys. So I will see you guys next week, same time, same place.
Sir,
Same
can I speak to you after class?
Yeah, man. You want to just talk to me straight here, or?
In a breakout room is fine.
Okie doke. All right, but the rest of you are free to go.
Okay, sir.
All right. All right, let me create that really quickly. Right. Who wanted to speak to me again? Oh, you know what? All right, fair man. Let me just create
So
the
let me
room.
ask a quick question before you leave as well, sir.
Mhm.
Before you go to the room. Was the grade issue sorted out, sir, as well?
No, you need to follow me. The challenge is that we're having some challenges at UTech now. So that some persons, well, from what I heard, the admin should be available to do the paperwork for any grade adjustments this week. All
Okay,
right, so hopefully everything goes smooth.
All right. As long as it will be adjusted, sir. I think that's all I
Yeah,
want.
man, but I need you to just follow
Follow
up
up.
with me.
All right,
Yeah,
sir. I will send an email then,
right,
sir.
because I have them on my to-do list. I have a couple students
All
as
right, sir. I
well.
will
So
email them, sir.
follow up with me as I continue to follow up with the school. All right.
All right, sir.
All right, Chantel, you can. I'm going to jump over to that room now. Oh, I think I can just assign you. Let me just assign you. Yeah. All right.
Okay,
All
so
right. Can
I
you hear
have
me?
the same question as Steven actually about the grades because I messaged you on WhatsApp about it and I
Chantel?
also yeah. Sir, can you hear me? You're able to hear
Hello,
me
are you
now, sir?
there?
Yeah, I'm here, sir. Can you hear me? Uh, mm.
Hello. Oh, you're not hearing me? Or am I not hearing you? Who is not hearing who?
I don't think you're hearing me, sir. Can you hear me? Oh my Lord.
You want to message me in the chat? Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Hello, talk again?
Can you hear me now, sir?
Yeah, I'm not sure why Zoom did that. It changed my speaker.
Oh,
Anyway, yeah, what
okay.
you say now?
Right. I had the same concern as Steven, but he got to it
Oh,
before
really
you.
great.
Yeah, because I had messaged you about them a couple, I think last week or
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
and I followed up, but I didn't get a response. So I was figuring out if it was changed. I know that UTech is still on strike, but I'm
Yeah.
wondering if there is any change for that.
Yeah, 'cause what happened? Okay, so how it goes is that I check the process and I initiate the process of doing the change. Miss Baker need to and the program director need to also sign off on them as well. So basically I was just kind of waiting for that to for it to be a smooth process for me to do that. So that's why I haven't submitted it yet. All right. So that is the only little hold up that we have now. I did hear Miss Baker did say that they are now processing change of grades, so it should be okay. But I haven't spoken to her since, so that's why. Right?
Okay, sir, that's fine. I was just following up.
Yeah, man, yeah, man. So just message me and so we can So we can follow up same way. All right.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much.
Yeah, man. No problemo.
All right. Bye-bye.
Mhm.